How's it going? I'm Anthony, and these are stories of my life. For those of you just joining us for the first time, these videos are a cognitive therapy tool for me. I've taken some head injuries over the years, my memory's been failing me, and the doctors have suggested that I make these videos to preserve the memories I still have, as well as to inspire you all who are involved in these events to provide me with details that I may have lost, or even to remind me of events I've completely forgotten, in which case then I can either remake an old video with the new details like I am now, or make a whole new video. And I'm sure you understand how that all works. But anyway, building off the last video, the events of this one do take place in 1991. At the beginning of my freshman year of high school, I was 13 years old. I was going to Riverside Polytechnic High School, which we referred to it as Poly. And I was living with my father in a one-bedroom apartment at Quail Creek Apartments in Riverside, California. And as far as the school goes, Poly High School, I liked it. I liked the school. It was clean, well kept, layout was good, it was inviting. It was a good school. More than that, it had the moniker of being the rich kids' school, and which it came by that honestly, because there was more of the wealthy families living in that district or in that school's region than any other school in the district. And so it got that title, and it owned it. They also had a lot of money because of that. There was a lot of donations to the school for new things from all these families, and so it was a blessing to be there when I was. The bad news was the school colors. They were green and orange. Talk about horrendous. Yeah, it doesn't get much worse than that. The mascot was the Bears, so imagine all that green and orange Bears stuff. It's just terrible. But they owned it. They rocked it. The uniforms weren't terrible looking. You got used to them. So I mean, that's just the way it was. My favorite part of the school days was the mornings and the afternoons. In the mornings, Jim would walk from his house over to mine, pick me up, and from there we would walk over to Gabe's house. And at Gabe's house there was, Gabe, Mike, their little sister Jennifer, or we called her Dusty, and occasionally you'd have Norma there too. And at any given time, you'd have all of Mike's friends, all of Gabe's friends, hanging out. So Gabe's house really became kind of like Mission Control, or Grand Central Station, if you will. But in the mornings, like I said, we'd all end up over at Gabe's house, and everybody would meet at Gabe's house, and then we'd all walk together as a group. And that was always cool. I enjoyed that walk, heading up to Poly from there. And then same thing after school, we'd walk back, and people would scatter off to their homes, and we'd end up at Gabe and Mike's and hang out there for a bit. And then from there, Jim and I would walk over to my house, might hang out at my house, or head on to Jim's. And that was kind of the norm. That was par for the course. At school, I don't remember too many things. I remember that we used to always hang out by the office at lunch, and I couldn't give you too many stories from that part of the year, but I know we used to always hang out right there by the office, and there's some windows and whatever else. Freshman year, though, was a little difficult for me because I was going through a lot of issues with my dad now. Now, if you watch the previous videos, you'll know that I went through a lot of issues with my mom and her being mentally and emotionally abusive with me. But now I'm living with my dad, and my dad is mentally and emotionally unstable as well as suicidal. And so I'm now dealing with this whole notion of literally 3 or 4 times a week talking my dad out of suicide, holding him while he's crying and whatever else. I'm 13 years old, and my dad is a 6'3", 250-pound guy that I'm supposed to be looking up to, and I'm the one holding him, consoling him, and talking him out of suicide. And it might sound like an exaggeration when I say 2 or 3 times a week. Actually, no, 3 or 4 times a week. But that was real. That was the truth. And some of you watching the video might remember me getting pulled out of school because I had to go to the hospital because that's where he was. And on several occasions it was police officers that would come to the school, pull me out, and take me to the hospital. But on a couple of occasions, there's actually a fire captain, funny as that is. And every now and then it would be somebody my dad knows. I think there was even one time it was Could have been a hospital representative or what do they call them? Social worker, whatever it might be. But anyway, I'd always end up at the hospital, and they'd have me interact with my dad to try to bring him back to the right mindset. And there was times I'd come home from wherever I was and find my dad in an attempt to kill himself, either with medications or whatever it might be. And I never wanted to call the police because I was afraid they'd take me away from him and make me go live with my mom, which I absolutely didn't want. I figured this was the lesser of two evils, and I was going to deal with it. The other thing that was really hard for me also was I found out my mom gave away my dog. She was so mad that I moved in with my dad that she gave away my dog, Dexter, my Pekingese. I called her up one day, and I'd always call her and I always talk to her. How's my dog? She's always great, blah, blah, blah. And she'd tell me everything was fine. One day I called her and finally she just goes, Anthony, I got to tell you something. I said, well, what is it? She said, I gave Dexter away. I couldn't take care of him anymore. Like, what? I gave him away. Who'd you give him to? It doesn't matter. She wouldn't tell me. I said, when did you give him away? She said, 2 weeks ago. I said, you have been lying to me for the last 2 weeks about my dog, telling me everything's great and blah, 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 and you gave him away 2 weeks ago? Yeah, I just didn't have the heart to tell you. You didn't have the heart to tell me, but you had the heart to actually give away my dog. I hung up on my mom. I didn't talk to her for months after that. So, yeah, I was a little pissed. I'm sure you would be too, rightfully so. But anyway, so I was struggling with all this stuff at that time, and I'll give you a funny story. One time I can actually remember getting called into the office, regarding my dad's situation. Somebody was going to be coming to pick me up to take me to the hospital. And so I'm sitting there waiting in the office, and there's this girl who is going to be announcing over the intercom, calling people in for various things. And she's going through this list of names, and finally she gets to a name, and she stops her intercom call. And she shows us the name, and it's a Vietnamese name, and the name is spelled P-H-U-Q. Last name is Y-U. And so, as you can imagine, it's pronounced fuck you, right? So we kept trying to get her to say it over the intercom. Because the only time you're going to be able to say that over an intercom and not get in trouble at school. But she chickened out. She wouldn't. So she ended up just writing out a pass and taking it to the kids' class herself and bringing them back and whatever else. We were a little bummed about that. But yeah, that's how things went. And as far as school goes, I actually started making a few more friends. So I started making friends that were freshmen, a lot of friends. And me being the small, awkward kid, I identified with all of the small, awkward kids, right? So I was making friends that were similar to me. And again, all freshmen. I'd also become better friends with Nathan Gray, and just a variety of other people. Well, the unfortunate thing about high school, as you know, is the freshmen like to pick on, or like to get picked on, not like to, but they get picked on by the seniors. So seniors always hazed the freshmen. Now this is back in 1991, and that was kind of a common occurrence back then. Hazing wasn't really a bad thing yet, and it was kind of par for the course. It was the rites of initiation, So the seniors would always pick on these freshmen, and I didn't think anything of it. It's just that's the way it goes. We got warned about it even going into high school that this was going to happen, and everybody goes through it, blah, blah, blah. That's okay. So when it was happening to me, I didn't mind. I'd laugh about it and move on because I figured once the year's over, it's all done, and eventually it's my turn to do that. Well, problem is some of these seniors kind of overdid it, at least in my mind. Well, more than that, they started doing it to my friends, which pissed me off. So one day I can actually remember walking from the gym around the locker room to head out to the main quad area for lunch. And I found one of my friends duct taped to a pole, and his pants were pulled down, and he was just sitting there looking real awkward, and there's all kinds of girls walking by and laughing at him. They had a good crowd laughing at him, and he was embarrassed, crying, and it was real bad. And so I walk up, and I was pissed. So I walk up to go free him, And there's all these seniors that are there. And these are the football players, some rich kid football players, big dudes. So I go running over, and I'm trying to get to them, and they're trying to hold me back, and I'm swinging and punching and kicking, hitting people in the nuts and throat punching them and whatever else. And I finally get to this kid, and as I'm cutting him down, they're threatening me. You're going to get it, we're going to get you, blah, blah, blah. And, whatever. I cut the kid off the pole and leave it at that. So now I'm a target. And for the rest of, I don't want to say rest of the school year because it did stop, and I'll explain. But for the next couple of weeks, they were screwing with me like crazy, and also screwing with any freshmen that I knew that they could screw with. Guys like Jim, they didn't really mess with because he was on the football team, but anybody that wasn't, they tore into him like crazy. And they were my friends. Well, I can remember walking around the school, and at lunch, they would throw food at me. And they would a lot of them bring their own lunches, and they would throw their own food. And I can remember getting hit with tomatoes covered in like ranch or stuff, have all this crap all over stuck to my shirt. And it used to piss me off. And they would throw it from a crowd and then kind of sit there like they didn't do it. But at the time I had a photographic memory, so I would keep track of everybody's face. And whenever this happened, I would remember whose faces were whose and this and that. One day, a whole bunch of guys tried to jump me and throw me in a trash can, this nasty-ass trash can. So as soon as they got me, they brought this trash can over, and they were holding me and brought it over, and I kicked the trash can away. And then I managed to kick the guy in the chest that was bringing the trash can over. And I started swinging and fighting and, not being real nice to the guy that was holding me. And, fish hooking him and, going for the nose, whatever else. And I started swinging at everybody else. And it ended up being a full-on fight. A bunch of these guys against me. And I was a little scrapper, I'll tell you what. I didn't care. Well, when all was said and done, I had left some pretty good-sized welts on people. I had people limping because I was hitting them or kicking them in the knees and stuff. Soccer players, so is what I do. And there was points where they had to go into the office. A couple of them had to go in for nurse's aid, and I never got in trouble. So they never told the nurse that anything happened, which I doubt they would. What are you gonna say? Picked on a freshman, you beat our ass, whatever. So never got in trouble for it, and that was that. Then there was another one that actually happened in the gym. And a couple of big seniors, they tried to throw me into a trash can. Fortunately, this trash can was clean, but either way, they tried to throw me in this trash can. One of the guys grabbed me from behind, picked me up. The other guy brought the trash can over, and I spun, and I kicked the dude right here beside the eye. I don't know if I broke his orbital bone or just fractured it, but his face instantly started swelling up. Dude took the hit, grunted real hard, and spun around and never looked back. He just walked away. And his face just was bad. He had to go to the nurse. But anyway, then I'm sitting there fighting with the other dude. I managed to get spun around in his arms. And I start down kicking at his knees. And I ended up hyperextending one of his knees, or actually turning it. And I think I might have even messed up his meniscus with the way I hit it. But anyway, again, with him, I started fish hooking and yanking at ears and clawing at his face because I was up there. I couldn't just hit. I was trying to hit, but I couldn't get any power, right? Because it's too short of a wind-up. But then I started gouging at his eyes, and I guess I got to one of his eyes, and he dropped me and instantly grabbed his face and squealed like a bitch and ran off. And he ended up going to the nurse's office, and again, I never got in trouble for it. And so they stopped trying to grab a hold of me after that and do all that. But they kept doing the crap of throwing things at me while I'm walking around at school. And I got tired of it. And they were talking crap, threatening me, and walk by, oh, we're gonna get you. But they would do this to my friends. And there was a few occasions where I found other smaller freshmen that I knew, again, tied to poles, pants, have their lunch dumped all over them and whatever else. So finally one day I just said, you know what? No, I'm done. Like this is it. I'm putting an end to this. So one morning I get to school early and I go wait at the parking lot. And I just sit there and I got a pen and notepad and I'm spotting all these faces that I knew were people that were screwing with people or people that attacked me and whatever else. So I start writing down what kind of car they own, what their license plate number is, and just for mental log, and let them go about their business. Well, then later on that day, probably fifth period, I get a pass to go to the bathroom. And I leave, and I sneak around the back of the school so nobody can see me. And I was kind of a little ninja back then. I was good at going around undetected. Well, I get out to the parking lot. I sneak into the parking lot from like this weird angle, get over the fence. Nobody saw me. And they didn't have a lot of campus security back then because school violence wasn't really a thing, and there was no security cameras, so nobody saw me. And I had my little pocket knife. And yes, I did bring it to school that day. I knew what I was going to do. And I ended up popping all of their tires. Now, the way I remembered it, I had thought I only did one vehicle, and that was the main dude. And he was like quarterback of the football team or some crap like that. But anyway, I ended up popping all his tires. But I heard later from some friends of mine that I ended up getting like 8, maybe even 10 cars, and I'm popping all of their tires, and leaving sticky notes on their cars that says, "Don't fuck with freshmen." And that's it. That was all I put on it. And I had written the notes in such a way that if you tried to compare it to my handwriting, you couldn't figure out whose it was. But anyway, I popped all 4 tires on probably 8 to 10 different vehicles that I recognized as being part of this group of people, and left that note. And guess what happened? Nothing happened to me because I didn't know what was going on. But no freshman got screwed with the rest of the year. It just ended. Just like that. Just like that. Yeah. You don't fuck with my friends. Anyway. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed that one. Have a good one.